Good day YouTube, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stefan, aka Hippo. Today I'm going to share some easy ways to create video ads quickly within After Effects. Hopefully these techniques can help you create some quick and easy content for your client or marketing campaigns, with the main lesson being that it really isn't too far a stretch to convert image ads into video ads. Let me tell you why. Now, as a marketer or content creator, the easy path is to just use images for your Facebook ads. And to be fair, that gets some great results. But the bottom line is video can be far more engaging than just an image and can stop a potential customer from scrolling far easier. So what do I mean by that? A scroll stopper or scroll stopping ad is basically just trying to prevent a customer from scrolling past your ad. You want them to stop, engage, comment, and click. You want to make sure that they spend as much time looking at your offer. Let's look at two examples. Here's an image and here's a video. Here's an image, and here's a video. Now, which ones do you reckon would make the average person stop and look? Now, there are plenty of scroll stopping techniques that go beyond just motion graphics, but video has that innate quality built in, movement. Motion graphics can turn a basic image into a moving image that catches people's eye. It's the movement and content working together to stop that scroll and get that click. So what I'm going to show you today is how to use an existing image that was designed by your graphic designer or you, and maybe it's been used as an ad, but that's it. I'm going to convert that into a video using some basic motion graphic techniques within After Effects. Now, when converting an image to video, in this specific example, resulted in some great return for this client. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so this is the image I'm going to be using today. This is for a client of mine, Hideaway, part of their ad campaign for Black Friday. It's not a bad image. It's got key message, up to 50% off, got the logo, and then got an array of the beautiful, colorful products that they have. So it's quite eye-catching, and this ad by itself was quite successful. But I'm going to show you some techniques to bring this to life. So in most cases, there's a graphic designer or you, and you're creating these images to use for Facebook ads. But the thing is, if you're creating this in Photoshop or Illustrator, but mainly in Photoshop, you're only a couple of steps away from creating an eye-catching motion graphic. So let's get right into it. This is the image, and as you can see here, every product is on a different layer. So we have a bunch of different products here. Okay, so there's a couple of things you need to know about Photoshop and After Effects and how they work together. Like Photoshop, After Effects works on layers, and it works on the same hierarchy that you see here in Photoshop. So the word sale is above the white rectangle, so it will show above. Okay, so the same hierarchy in Photoshop as there is in After Effects. So what important thing to ask your designer or for you to look out for when you're creating these images is to make sure that your image is RGB. To check that, you come up here to Image and Mode, and then make sure you're in RGB color. If you're in anything else like CMYK, your layers will not show up in After Effects. The next thing you need to do is save this as a PSD file. Control-Shift-S or Command-Shift-S, and you're going to save it as a Photoshop.psd file. So I've already saved it there as clientad.psd. So it's important to let your designer know that it needs to be RGB and it needs to be layered. Okay, so you need access to these layers. Sometimes, some designers might select all the products and then merge those layers. That's no good. Having access to each individual layer allows us to then animate each individual layer. All right, here we are within After Effects, and what we're going to try to achieve today is something like this. It's a relatively simple motion graphic animation, but what it's doing is it's converting that image that you created in Photoshop or the image that you received as a PSD file into a motion graphic. Now I'm going to go through two ways to do this. First way, I'm going to talk about animating position, and the second way, I'm going to talk about animating scale. So when we're talking about animating within After Effects, we're talking about animating certain transform properties. The transform properties within After Effects are, if I can show you here, P for position, S for scale, T for opacity, R for rotation. Those are the main ones. There's a couple, I think there's anchor point as well. Yep, A for anchor point. But those are, when we talk about animation, those are the transform properties that you'll be using most of the time and that you'll be animating most of the time. So for example, one here, we're only animating position, and we're using scale just to accent a few bits and pieces there with the main title. And with the second option here, we're only using scale.
Now, totally up to you how you want to do this, but the point is that you can animate any of those transform properties, right? So here are two examples. You can go ahead and experiment with rotation or opacity or combining position, scale, rotation, and opacity. But I'm just going to show you how to animate, and then you can apply that across any transform properties that you like. So we're just going to start fresh here within After Effects. And what you want to do is double click your project window, or alternatively go File, Import File. And we're going to choose our client add.psd file that we created before. And before you press import, come down here to import as and choose not footage, but composition retain layer sizes. What that's doing is it's treating your PSD file as a composition. That means it's going to retain all of those individual editable layers, and it's also going to retain the layer sizes. So the positioning of the layers within that frame that you created within Photoshop. Alrighty, so I'll press import on that one. And just a little warning window will pop up to make sure that you've chosen composition retain layer sizes. Yep. And editable layer styles. And then just press OK. So what that gives you is a composition in After Effects that is the exact size of the composition that you made in Photoshop. In this case, the client wanted a square ad, so it was a 1080 by 1080 1:1 ratio canvas. So it brings that composition in, and then it also makes a folder with all of the individual layers that were in Photoshop there. So we won't really need that. We'll just close that folder out. And if you just double click on that client, add composition, voila, there's everything. So let's have a quick look here. Here are all our layers, just like they were in Photoshop. Absolute magic. Same hierarchy, they're all there. Same name. I'm going to go ahead and select all of the products. So there's 54 layers of products. So shift select on those layers. And I'm just going to hit the little shy guy switch here. So if you don't know what the shy guy switch, basically if you press that shy guy toggle there and then the master toggle here, it hides all the layers for which the shy switch is set. Okay, so I set the shy switch for all of my product layers, hit that master switch. Now they're all hidden. That just cleans up your timeline for you. So if you're working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of layers, you can hit that shy switch, and as long as they've been toggled, they're hidden. So it lets you focus on two things at once. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to focus on is the logo and key message of this ad. So we've got the logo, Black Friday sale, and up to 50% off. So I'm going to hit that shy guy switch. I'm just going to select all my products one more time here, and I'm just going to color code them green. You change the color by pressing the little box to the left of the layer. And then I'm going to hit the eye switch here just to hide all of those layers. And then I'll just hit the shy guy master switch again. Boom, cleans it up. Here we have our black background, which I'm actually going to lock. So if you ever have a layer which you just don't want to touch, you don't want to move it around, just lock it. That means if you're selecting layers or if you're trying to move it, it won't let you. And I'm just going to do a quick little cleanup here. I know that this rectangle is under sale, so I'll just bring sale down to that rectangle. And then in this case, I'm going to actually parent that rectangle to the word sale, which means if I animate sale or if I do anything to the word sale, that rectangle will be stuck to it. It'll move with it. Now to parent, you come over here to the parent and link section, and you can just select the layer. But if you have too many layers like that, you can just use the pick whip and you can drag it up to the layer that you want it to parent to. So now if I move the word sale, the rectangle is going to move with it. Now because we're going to be doing two versions today, I'm just going to duplicate this client add. Click on the client add, edit, and duplicate. Right click and rename. The second one we're going to call it scale. That'll be the scale version of the ad. And then this one I'm going to rename to position. And that'll be the position version of the ad, all right? So we're going to work on the position one first. And like I said, the basic premise of After Effects is that you're animating these transform properties. Now the main message animation is going to be the same between these two compositions. I'm essentially just going to be using scale. So let's start with all of our layers here. Select all of the relevant layers up to cell. Remember, a rectangle is parented to the cell layer. So anything you do to the cell layer will apply to the rectangle. So you don't need to select the rectangle in this case. And I'm going to press S on the keyboard to bring up my scale keyframes. Now, if I just change the scale on any one of these layers, it'll change the scale, yep, but it will not animate and will not do anything to those layers. What you need to do to activate the animation is to hit the little stopwatch here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just zoom into my little composition here. And I'm just going to head to 5 frames. I'm going to make sure those layers are selected and hit the stopwatch. Now that has created a keyframe for me. That'll be my end point. That'll be point B. Right, so I'm animating from A to B, point 1 to 2. And then from there, I'm going to just go back on the timeline here and Now you can either hit the little keyframe button here and it'll create keyframes for you, or you can change the value and it'll automatically add a new keyframe because the stopwatch is selected. So if I just type in 0 for that one, because I have all my layers selected, it's going to apply that to all my layers. And then that's all going to zoom in. Looking pretty good, but relatively basic. So what I want to do is I just want to smooth this out a bit. So when I was first starting out, one of the best things I learned in After Effects was easy ease. So when you're animating something like this, let me just show you. If you hit the graph editor here, you can see that from point A to point B, it's a linear line. So what that means is basic A to B. No slow down or speed up. It just goes from point A to point B. Now, if we apply something like an easy ease to this keyframe, which you can do by selecting your two keyframes, right-clicking Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, or if you have a full-size keyboard, you can actually just select the two keyframes and hit F9. Now, if we look at the graph editor, you can see that it's made a bit of a curve. Now, what that's doing is it's adding a little bit of speed to your animation so that in and out, the speed will vary, and that gives you the illusion of a smoother animation. Let's apply that to all of our layers. So I'm selecting all those keyframes and just hitting F9, and let's see what that looks like. Because it's quite fast, but it just gives you that little smoothed edge when compared to, you know, just your normal keyframes. Select all, F9. And you can play with these keyframes. You can move them forward and backward just to see the effect a little bit better. Okay, you can see that's quite nice and smooth there. So you can just drag all these keyframes back and forth to a timing position. I'm going to stick with somewhere between 5 and 10 frames. Okay, one more trick along with Easy Ease that I always tend to use in motion graphics is motion blur. This is a great method to just blend in your work and just make it look a little bit cooler. You can see down here, there's a little toggle switch for motion blur. Now, if you don't see the motion blur toggle, you can come down here to expand or collapse the layer switches pane and make sure that is blue. All right, so I'm going to select all of my layers and I'm going to add some motion blur. And now if we go halfway into this animation here, you'll see that there's a little bit of motion blur that's been added. And again, all that's doing is it's just adding a little extra something there just to make that blend in a little bit better. That animation is going to stay the same between the two versions. And now we're going to talk about animating the products. So I'm just going to come here and minimize all these layers and then press the shy guy. The shy guy's back. And that's going to reveal all of my product layers. So I'm going to select all of my product layers, all the green ones. I'm going to make them visible again by hitting the eye switch here. And there they are. My God, there's so many of them. So we're going to talk about animating position first, right? So I'm going to head to the 5th frame of my composition, and you can see over here that it's 5 frames. If you want to do it manually, you can actually go in here and you can type in 5 frames. Now this is going to be the end point of my animation, the end point of my position animation for all of my products. So here I go. I'm going to select all of my products. I'm going to hit P on the keyboard, and I'm going to then hit that position keyframe stopwatch. Now what that's done is it's locked in the position of those products at this point in time. Now I'm going to go back to 0. And now, because we have that stopwatch hit, wherever we move our product, it's going to create a new keyframe and it's going to animate that product. So just as a quick example, this product down here, I'm going to click and select it. I'm going to drag it off to the side here. And now if we press play, you can see that that has animated in. I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of the products. I'm just going to fast forward here. But basically, I'm just spreading them all out from where I think they should come from using the position keyframe. Let's do it. I have now spread all of those out. I've moved them out of the frame, which is now their starting point. And because we created that keyframe first, at the 5 frame point, that is the end point. So what does that look like? Super simple and some really cool movement happening there. I'm going to apply the same 2 techniques to those keyframes before we move forward. I'm going to select all of those keyframes by drawing a marquee, all right? You want to draw a marquee from any gray area of your timeline. I'm going to draw a little up all the way, a little scroll up for me. All right, I've selected all of those, and then I'm going to hit F9 on the keyboard to get that easy ease happening. Again, alternatively, you can right-click those if they're all selected. Go to Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. So now what that's done is it's just smoothed out my position movement a little bit there. Let's take a look at that. pretty nifty. And then I'm just going to also select all those layers again, all my product layers, and then hit the motion blur. So now you can see there, it looks pretty cool. I'll just play that through. Adds a little bit of motion blur, melds it all together, and it's looking pretty good. The only problem with this I see at the moment right now is they all come in at the same time. If you've done all this work animating these keyframes, you don't want to go frame by frame and move each keyframe forward and move the layers. So there's actually an easy way to sequence your layers relatively quickly. So I'm just going to come here down to the composition, and I know that I'm going to make this composition 3 seconds long. So at the 3 second point, I'm going to hit N on the keyboard, N for November. And what that's going to do is allow me to come up here to composition and trim comp to work area. Now, I've just realized something, and motion graphics artists fall into this trap all the time. But the most important thing that you cannot forget is to save. And so press Control S or Command S and make sure you save, because that's just a accident waiting to happen. All right, save. Ah, beautiful. Okay. You'll get to a point in your life where you just instinctively press Control S every 10 seconds, every 5 seconds. So how do we sequence these layers? Well, we now know that our composition is 3 seconds long. So to sequence those layers, you select them all, right click, come up here to Keyframe Assistant and Sequence Layers. Now we just want this to be one frame. So the gap between the layers, we want them to be stacked one frame at a time. So the length of this composition is 3 seconds. So 2 seconds and 25 frames is technically 3 seconds. Okay, you can see they've all been stacked here with a 1 frame gap. Pretty cool. Beautifully sequenced. That saves a lot of time, especially if you've done the animation already. So now if we have a look at that, they all come in and they're all done before we hit that 3 second spot. So that's looking pretty good. The movement in this motion graphic will 100% catch someone's eye versus just an image. But I'm going to do two more things. First thing I'm going to do is to emphasize the fact that it's up to 50% off. And the second thing I'm going to do, because it's only 3 seconds long, is I'm going to create a clean loop back and forth. What that's going to allow is then on a platform like Facebook or Instagram, it's going to automatically loop on and on and on. I think the minimum is 4 seconds of a video for it to loop. But if you want a clean loop, I can show you how to do that. All right, so adding emphasis. I want to make sure that people know that this is up to 50% off, because that's a pretty damn good deal. So once everything is animated in, I'm going to come here to this spot here. Everything's animated in, and I'm just going to create a quick little scale animation on that layer up to 50% off to just go like, hey guys, it's 50% off. So press the shy guy here to hide all your products and come here to up to 50% off. So everything's animated in at this point here. I'm going to hit S on the keyboard, and you'll see the existing scale animation there at the beginning. And I'm just going to make a new keyframe over here, and then go forward a few frames, make another one, and then go back a few frames to in between those two you just made, and scale it up to whatever size you want. Don't go too far across your products. And I'm just going to tighten this up here frame by frame. If you now look, that I'm just going to do just a little like, hey guys, what's up? So it might be a little bit too fast. So you can actually stretch out the speed of your keyframes by selecting them all, holding Alt on the keyboard, and then dragging them out. That'll keep the origin point of the first keyframe, and it'll spread the speed out of the other ones. So let's take a look at that. That's a nicer little, just a nice little accent to remind people that it's up to 50% off. So how do we loop this, right? It's 3 seconds long. I want to make sure it's a clean loop back and forth. So when it's played on Facebook, there's no disruptive black frame, or there's no, or it doesn't cut to black and then restart. It's just going to be a smooth back and forth. So to do that, I'm going to come up here to my composition, which I just created, a position, and I'm going to drag that into a new composition. You drag your composition down to this little composition button. Boom. So I'm going to double the length of this composition by coming up here to composition, composition settings, and I'm going to double it from 3 seconds. It's 3 seconds in one frame. That's why I sequence the layers at 3 seconds. Now we know. Okay, so 6 seconds, double it to 6 seconds and 2 frames. Okay, as you can see here on the timeline, I'm just going to duplicate this layer, drag it across, make sure there's no gap there. That looks pretty good. And to loop those two, I'll let the first one play. And then the second one, I'm going to right click it, come up to time and time reverse layer. So now if we play this here, we have our completed version of the position ad. I'm liking what that looks like, but like I said, I'm also going to show you quickly how to do that same ad, but this time animating a different transform property, scale. So I'm going to open up that duplicated composition that I made before, client add scale. It's a fresh copy. Like I said, though, I'm going to reuse the title animation that I created for my position composition. So I'm going to come up back here to client add position. I'm going to reuse this one. So I'm actually going to select all these. And this is a great way to transfer things between compositions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control-Shift-C, right click and pre-compose. What that's going to do is it's going to create a composition which contains all of those layers. So it's like creating a folder within Photoshop. So I'm going to name that Black Friday title animation. And this should be automatically checked. So just press OK. And there you go. There's my little pre-composition. Now, because I'm going to use that same title animation for the scale version, I'm just going to select that, Control-C or Command-C to copy, come over here to my scale version and paste it from 0 onwards. That way I can delete my other layers. And there is my title animation. So this composition also has to be trimmed down to 3 seconds. So come to your 3-second mark and on the keyboard, composition, trim comp to work area. So how long is this composition? Ending point over here is 3 seconds and 1 frame. Then I'm gonna hit that shy guy layer, select all of my products, make them visible, and here we have them. So now we're gonna animate scale and then sequence them like we did before. I'm just gonna expand my window here, press S on the keyboard for scale, come to the 5 frame mark, and then hit that stopwatch. As long as all your layers are selected, they will all be activated for keyframe animation. So there we go, they're all there. Come back down to 0. And then as long as all those layers are selected, hit on one of them and press 0. And now that's been applied to all of the layers. So let's have a quick look what that looks like. So they're all scaled in with the title animation there. So what do? We're going to apply motion blur and easy ease. So I'm going to select all of my keyframes here, press F9 on the keyboard or right click keyframe assistant easy ease. That has now applied my easy ease. And while I have them all selected, I'm also going to select the motion blur toggle, which is just this one here. And again, if all your layers are selected, that'll apply to all of your layers. So I've applied easy ease and my motion blur, so it's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to sequence those layers like I did before. Select all of your products, right click, keyframe assistant, sequence layers, same length as before, 3 seconds. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Looking pretty good. Now I'm going to go back to my looping composition here, and I'm going to bring the scale version in here, duplicate it, move it across just like I did for position, right click on the second one, time and time reverse layer. Now if I hide those top two, the position ones, we can have a look at this looped scale version. So there you have it, guys. Here are the two that we created, focusing on two different main transform controls, scale and position. Like I said, there's scale, position, rotation, opacity, anchor point. There's plenty more to play with in After Effects. I hope that this has shown you how to animate, so you can apply that across any of those transform properties that you like. Word of warning, obviously, this is the bare minimum that I would do for a motion graphic. If you want to take this further, add more messaging, add a call to action, or add another frame, you're more than welcome to do that. I just wanted to get in here and show you how to convert your images, your already existing images, into a motion graphic so that they're not sitting there wasting away as an image. You can apply that mentality of using this image in many different ways to get some really cool results. So just to quickly recap what we just covered, we took an image that was created in Photoshop, a layered image that was created in RGB color. We imported that into After Effects and we animated those layers to create something a little bit more engaging, a little bit more eye-catching than just a plain image. Now this image by itself, it's quite cool. It performed well for the client, but a motion graphic like this performed better for this client because it caught the eye of whoever was scrolling past it at the time.
That's the advantage of converting your images into motion graphics. Because like I said before, motion graphics, whether it's pretty basic motion graphics or something more advanced, it's movement. It catches the audience's attention. And if you use some of these basic motion graphics techniques to add animation to your images, you'll hopefully see some better results for your ads. That's it for today's tutorial. If you like what you saw, please hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to see more tutorials like this, let me know in the comments below and I'll make sure to do it next. Thanks guys.